Mark Osborne, what's your superpower and how does that serve your mission to help others?
Absolutely. My superpower is in the persuasive arts. I've been lucky enough that my entire career has been both my job has also been my hobby. The thing that I'm obsessed with personally is also the thing that I get to work with, whether that's persuading large groups from a marketing perspective and building category strategy and messaging, or persuading individuals from a sales strategy and guiding decision making, and even how that sort of persuasion works from a leadership perspective as you're leading and motivating teams. That's really my superpower and where I spend all my time.
Very, very good. Flywheel leadership is about discovering and practicing the leadership systems that bring out the best in each of us and our teams. What's a story from your experience that comes to mind that exemplifies exceptional or unique styles in leadership?
So unfortunately, I probably have more examples of bad leadership than good in my career. And I think that's probably not uncommon for a lot of folks listening. Anyone that's spent any time in, sort of the corporate environment, of today has realized that, there's very little investment in leadership training. And instead, if someone that is a high performer as an individual, oftentimes is thrown into a leadership role with little to no sort of training on how to be better at that role. And oftentimes, if they're good or bad, that's sort of, up to the people that they lead or manage that actually have to sort of manage up and train up to sort of encourage that person to get better. And I certainly experienced a lot of that in my career. I think probably one of the most interesting things, the most important things for leaders to understand, and I actually did a research study on this in school. Organizations go through different sort of life cycle phases, and people have probably heard of the idea of forming, storming, norming, performing, of those different stages. Like the group forms and certain things happen, and then they go through this sort of storming phase and certain things happen, and then they establish their norms of how they're going to work together, and then they can actually perform and deliver against what it is that they have. And most organizations actually spend most of their life in that performing stage because the group has been formed, maybe new people are coming into it, someone retires, someone gets fired, someone new joins the team grows. But it's in a performing sort of mindset. At that stage, management is what's key. And I define management as really a leader that's helping to find incremental opportunities and really, sort of reduce variation and mitigate risk. And that's what a manager is designed to do. Take a high performing system and make it perform better, longer, with fewer interruptions. And that's very much a management role. However, when a group is going through those forming and storming and norming phases, so a new group or a new initiative or a tiger team, or even, an entrepreneur that's starting a new company, that's not the time for management. That's the time for leadership. And I define leadership as, really sort of, aligning on a vision of where are we going and a mission, how are we going to get there? And then really rallying folks around that. And those are very different skill sets than those sort of incremental improvements of management, but the exponential improvements of leadership. And one of the challenges that I see oftentimes is someone is, high performing in a job as a manager, and so they get put in charge of a new division. Well, now their managerial skills are not what's needed. They need leadership skills in order to run that. Likewise, entrepreneurs have a lot of leadership and passion that makes them good at that sort of forming, storming, and norming part of the process. And so they spin up a company and they get it going. And now when it's time to move into a managerial phase, where the company needs to be optimized for ongoing performance and improvement, they get bored. And so they want to do some more storming and norming and start something new. And so leaders that can recognize what does the context that my organization is operating in, what does it need in order to deliver the best, and then adapt their behaviors, not to what they naturally are best at, but to what the situation needs, or to bring in someone else who has more of that natural skill set within the context that their business is operating in.
Good stuff, Mark. Appreciate you sharing. A few things come to mind when I see threads throughout your work. Revenue generation, systems thinking, marketing and sales expertise, and then really showing us how to create a collaborative environment between sales and marketing. I would love to understand a little bit more about modern revenue strategies and what your core work really is. How do you work with your clients, things of that nature?
Yeah, absolutely. So, most companies that hit sort of a revenue roadblock think that it's a marketing or sales problem. Like that's what's holding us back. But what we see is that it's actually a revenue architecture problem. It's the design of the systems that's holding them back. And very often, the sort of failed strategies that we see, and some of your audience might find this resonates. They work in an industry for a while, they have an idea for a better mousetrap, they go found a company to create that mousetrap, and they know what's right about it because they just built it. They know what's wrong about the competition because they used to work there. And they've got a big enough Rolodex that they can start calling some people and getting some sales. And so the company grows. And then they hit this, sort of revenue roadblock, as I call it. And the first thing they do is they try to hustle more. And they're like, let me just work harder. One more social media post, one more call with a lead that's already dead. And they realize that doesn't scale. That's not really going to work. And so then they're still resistant to the hard work of building the revenue architecture. So they're like, well, maybe I can find a hero. I'll go hire someone. I'll hire a salesperson. They'll be just like me and we'll double our revenues. Or I'll hire some marketing genius and they'll figure it all out. But heroes are really hard to find. They're really expensive. And fundamentally, they need systems in order to thrive. So that doesn't really work. And then oftentimes they'll get caught up in, what I call arts and crafts, which is marketing that's not connected to revenues. So they'll hire an agency and they'll spend some money, or they'll do some growth hacks, or the next latest and greatest thing that, they're hearing that someone else is getting outstanding performance with, but that's missing the strategic approach that it needs in order to be successful. And so after they've gone through these sort of failed experiments, they realize we don't need to hustle harder. We don't need to find a hero, and we don't need arts and crafts marketing that's not connected to revenue. What we really need is a revenue architecture that brings together marketing, which attracts more of the right prospects, not quantity, but quality. And I call those attraction systems. It accelerates your best deals through the sales pipeline, acceleration systems to really move those through quickly, not just the volume and the conversion rate, but also the time deltas. And then that also integrates your sort of recurring and expansion revenue systems, or activating your existing clients for faster renewals, larger upsells, more referrals, and testimonials. It's that holistic architecture that really sort of helps companies break through that initial revenue roadblock. Maybe it's at $1 million, maybe it's at 10 million. But until they take the time to do that, they're just going to keep grasping at straws and keep having these failed experiments. And I talk about this some in my book, which is called "Are Your Leads Killing Your Business?" And in fact, there's a number of sort of different templates and calculators. And I'll give your audience a free copy if they're interested. They can just go to modernrevenuestrategies.com/free download. Get a free copy of the book, everything they need to learn more about these systems and how they can integrate into their business today. But one of the key benefits of approaching marketing, sales, and recurring expansion revenue, customer success as an integrated set of systems is that it creates an environment for collaboration, which is so important in leadership today. And one of the key ways that we do that is by creating a shared scorecard where there are metrics that pertain to, sort of the marketing or kind of demand generation and demand capture. There are metrics related to, sort of sales and the volume of deals, the size of deals, and the conversion rates that are happening there. And there are metrics related to recurring and expansion revenue, and customer success and customer satisfaction, all those things. When that team comes together on some regular cadence and looks at a scorecard that has all of them aligned, and maybe they have different weightings of how they're judged against that scorecard, depending upon what team they're on. But when they see that they're all part of one unified system, it creates a lot more collaboration. Customer success now brings up ideas of, here's what our customers love about us. That's what we should be talking about in our marketing. Marketing then brings ideas on, well, here's how we can use some technology or media, things that sales isn't as familiar with, to help accelerate deals through that sales pipeline. Rather than what is too often the case, which is, marketing is out there telling one story to the market, which brings in leads, but that aren't really qualified. And sales is saying whatever they have to say to get a deal over the line, which leads to engagement that you can't really deliver on. And customer success is left holding the bag. And when they operate on their own measures of success and there's no collaboration, that's what you get. And that's not the path to building that flywheel.
You said a lot there, Mark. Thanks for walking through all that.
Sure.
Yeah, it's good stuff. So boiling it down to an action for that business owner, founder, CEO of that small, medium-sized business, like if they're in that position you just walked through, what do you suggest as kind of the next step to really try to figure this out?
So, I'm a fan of bringing in experts, and I tell the story oftentimes that, I repainted one of my bathrooms a few months back, and I watched all the YouTube videos. I went out and bought all the expensive equipment. I spent all weekend doing it, and it looked terrible. And I had to hire a professional to come in and fix it. So I would have had all that time that I spent trying to learn back. I would have had all that money that I spent on expensive equipment back. And I would have had, a lot less frustration and gotten my weekend back and ultimately gotten a better outcome. If I had just hired a professional. So that's one thing. And whether it's, someone like me or, just, getting an outside perspective is always valuable. But the first thing is really defining the system. So what is your process, your system look like for attracting those right prospects? How are you bringing those people in? How are you accelerating them through the sales process and helping them make decisions? And how are you renewing and expanding your relationship with them to really sort of activate those folks? Define each of those steps and actually put it up on a visual, because about 60% of the population is primarily visual in the way that they interpret the world. And so that means, over half of your team you're not getting their best insights if you're just talking about it or if you're writing memos back and forth. By creating that visual representation of what does our process look like, that then brings everyone's best thinking. The other thing that it does is it gets it out from between people's ears, puts it down on paper, and it makes it easier to collaborate. I can arm in arm with someone else from another team and look at the diagram on the wall, and we can collaboratively work on making it better. But if I'm just telling you how I do it, then you offering advice is in some way undercutting me, and maybe I'm not doing it right. So you're critiquing my approach versus when it's up on the wall, it's the business's process and systems, and then we can all work together to make that better. So that's that first step. Define that sort of critical client flow from the initial marketing through the, making them your best customer and largest evangelist in the marketplace. What are the most important steps that happen? What do you do today to guide them through those steps? What are your volume, conversion rate, and time deltas at each of those stages? And then identify, well, where are these moments that matter? Where are we breaking down? Where are we not benchmarked against our competitors in a sort of reasonable way? Focus there first. Don't try to fix everything. Don't go a mile wide and an inch deep. Instead, find that critical, sort of bottleneck and improve that. And then once that's really fixed and everyone in the organization is aligned on that new fix, then you move to the next thing. That focus is really what creates impact.
Certainly. Mark, could you walk us through whether it's a story or a case study of where you've partnered with, that CEO or founder, business owner, or even a, VP of sales, whatever the role is, to where you've taken them through this, kind of evolution of sales and marketing and help them come out better on the other end. Could you share a little bit of a story or case study on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So we use a process that we sort of cheekily define as sort of like a map or marketing action plan, a peak compass. So that's your priorities, your engines, your alignment, and your KPIs that helps you reach the peak that you're going towards. And then a guide for relentless execution. That's what we see as really sort of the ingredients of a successful approach. So let me tell you how that manifests in practice. So I was working with a B2B SaaS company. Their competitors were way outspending them in the marketplace. They were VC backed, had a lot of funds. This company was bootstrapped and just didn't have the funds to compete. Although they had superior technology, good ideas don't sell themselves, unfortunately. And so what we did is we started by building that map. So we looked at our KPIs across that critical client flow from that initial attraction all the way through to those activation systems. And then we looked at our category design. How are we approaching the category and the messaging that we were bringing in there? Through this analysis, we realized our KPIs were weakest on sort of attracting the right prospects. We weren't opening enough conversations, and our category design was weak. We were sort of playing a better trap where we were trying to be better because objectively our technology was better. We were caught in this better trap with these competitors who were drowning out any message we could put into the space about being better. So instead, we found out how we were different and how we were unique. And then we found those super users that cared about that uniqueness. And in this case, it was ad agencies. So this was in the ad tech, MarTech space. And so most of their competitors were going directly to the CMOs at large brands, trying to get them to license this technology. Along the way, this company that I was working with had picked up a number of different ad agencies, kind of just by default. That's who they had wound up bringing in as some of their early clients. And they realized that there was a white space in the market. Everyone else was going after the brands directly. We had gotten some capability, some clients within a beachhead, really within the ad agency space. And so rather than try to build what everyone else was building, they did a couple sprints of sort of engineering pushes to create things specific to that ad agency customer that made them better suited. We then identified the 100 best agencies that if we were to break into, would really sort of change the game for us. And rather than spend more money on advertising to try to keep up with those competitors or try to make a splash at a conference like those competitors were doing, we baked 100 customized case with that ad agency logo on it. And we talked about how we put our clients forward. We're the best thing you've never heard of because we make the agency shine. We combined that with a press release about new features specifically designed to improve agency performance, combined with a account-based marketing program of outbound calls and connections to those folks. Within the space of 90 days, we had a 300% increase in inbound RFPs, which led to within 6 months a doubling in revenue for zero additional ad spend. That's how that map then creates that compass that guides us on those priorities, the engines that we're going to use to execute, the alignment between the different teams, the KPIs, and then that guide for relentless execution really delivers these results.
Very good. Yeah, that story is got to ring true for a lot of different business owners as they take a look at how to change the course of sales and marketing, right? Mark, what is one thing you've changed your mind on over the span of your life or career?
Oh, a lot. I'm a big believer in the strong ideas held loosely sort of approach. And I really value sort of learning and expanding. But I'll tell you the big thing. So, my beginnings in marketing was about the early days of the internet when data first started becoming available. And I was building databases of people that had specific affinities that lived in different geos and sending them emails and, really sort of direct marketing, data-driven performance. And, in fact, so much so that Ad Age magazine named me a marketing technology trailblazer in 2017. I was one of the top 25 people in the world using data and technology for marketing and sales. So I really sort of value this ability to use new technologies and to bring them all in. And, MarTech is what they used to call it. Now it's RevOps or, go-to-market engineering, whatever you want to call it today. But the MarTech conference started publishing this, sort of landscape of all of the different companies that were building technologies for marketing and sales and ad tech. And the first year that they put out this landscape, there were about 100 different logos on it. And people were like, wow, there are 100 companies that are building all of these different solutions. And I really prided myself on being able to be the first to adopt a new technology and then essentially lead the marketplace and sort of arbitrage that, I was first to market and using this new technology. And there's a whole generation of marketers that's all they've done. They were the first to realize consumers are starting to use search engines. If I optimize my website to be found by search engines, I'll get all this traffic. And it was true and it worked. And then they were the first to buy ads on the new platforms, and they were the first to embrace new platforms and all of these different things. But this last year, the MarTech conference published that sort of landscape. There were over 10,000 different technologies on there. The rate of innovation is so high, you can't keep pace. And in fact, you can't win by just trying to find the next growth hack, by trying to find this next arbitrage opportunity of being the first to use a new technology or a new data set or be on a new platform. And it was that realization that led me to realize it's not about the technology, it's about the strategy. And then the strategy guides the creation of the system. And then once you have that system, then you can look for data that enhances that system and makes it run better, or technology that makes that system run faster, stronger, longer, with fewer mistakes, all of those different things. Coming back to that idea of leadership versus management, and really starting with the leadership of the strategy and where does that indicate that we need to go, that map, to then get to the sort of systems and processes, those engines that we need to get there. And that then guides the success rather than starting with the engines.
Makes sense. Really seeing the theme with the difference between leadership and management in the context of your expertise. So thought about that a lot over the years in just generally leadership versus management. But when it comes down to, this, MarTech, RevOps, go-to-market space, I mean, that really makes a lot of sense. Mark, what have we missed that we should have talked about? Anything else you'd like to cover today?
So yeah, I'll take a little bit of a left-hand turn.
Sounds good.
So there are a large number of companies that are preparing in the next 5 to 10 years for some sort of transition. So all of the boomers and older generation are going to transfer their businesses either to a strategic buyer or, to the next generation of owners or to the employees or partners. A lot of Gen X has had success early and wants to, sort of enjoy their later years. So there's this concept of a silver tsunami of all of these businesses that are going to change hands. And I was working with a number of sort of advisors and consultants in this exit advisory space. And what they kept saying is, my clients are leaving money on the table because they're not investing in the marketing and sales systems that would make their businesses more attractive and more transferable to potential buyers. And the reason why is when they go out and talk to marketing folks, most of those people can't spell EBITDA, which is the earnings before interest, depreciation, amortization, and taxes, which is fundamentally what drives the valuation of a business. And most marketers don't think about building enterprise value. They just think about the top line revenues. And let's run some campaigns. Let's rebrand your website. Let's come up with a new logo and tagline. Those aren't things that when you're trying to sell your business within the next 12 to 60 months are going to move the needle. Those are things that pay off over 7 to 10 years. And they're very negative ROI at first because you have to spend a lot of time getting some research and spending some time thinking about it, and hypothesis testing to sort of align on those things. And so I rebuilt from sort of the ground up, throwing all the kind of conventional thinking about marketing and sales out the window, specific to that context of businesses that are preparing for exit. I earned my certified exit planning advisory credential from the Exit Planning Institute, and I'm actually presenting at their national summit in Nashville this year on how business advisors and how companies preparing for exit can really take advantage of some strategic marketing and sales initiatives that will impact the value of the enterprise and the attractiveness to potential buyers in as short as 90 days, which is the myth is, well, it's too late for marketing and sales to make an impact. But if you reapproach it, there's actually a lot of opportunity there. That's something I'm really excited about, and seeing a lot of really big impacts for companies to impact their multiple. And, on a $1 million business, one turn of the multiple is an extra $1 million in sort of the exit price. And so that's been really sort of rewarding to see that.
Very nice. That's such an interesting time with so many that will exit one way or the other, and it's about making sure that those preparations start early enough to exit in the way that you would like, versus forced exits and exits that go south, things of that nature.
That's right,
Mark. Before we wrap up, what do you want those you have worked with to say about your impact on them?
A lot of marketing and sales folks have really big personalities, and they kind of like to sort of play the rock star role. And I was a professional musician for a while, so I certainly get the appeal of that. But what I really strive is I never want people to think I'm the smartest guy in the room. I want to think that they're never smarter than when I'm in the room with them. And that's really what I want my clients and partners to walk away with, is not thinking, wow, that Mark, he's full of ideas, but instead, wow, that Mark, when he's there, I have my best ideas. And that's really what I strive to do when I work with people, is to not be the hero, to not be that star, but to enable them to be that star, oftentimes through the building of systems and processes.
I love that, Mark. All about making other people better is such a powerful concept. How can listeners best find you or follow you in your mission?
Absolutely. So I mentioned free copy of the book for anyone that's interested. The book is called Are Your Leads Killing Your Business? Which again talks a little bit about the trap that a lot of folks fall into, of sort of more hustle, or more activity, or sort of just more, when it's really about the systems that help you get better. And a free copy at modernrevenuestrategies.com/free download. Anyone that downloads that gets an email from me. I'm going to ask you how you liked it, and look for feedback. Or you can always email me, Mark at modernrevenuestrategies.com. That's Mark with a K. At modernrevenuestrategies.com. And I'd love to hear from any of your audience, and, spend some time exploring what you're working on, what those revenue roadblocks are that might be holding you back, and how I can help you break through.
That's great. Mark Osborne, Modern Revenue Strategies. Thank you for your time today. We appreciate you sharing.
Thanks so much, Graham. I really enjoyed the opportunity to connect.
You as well. Take care.